My husband with dementia is just a nuisance that limits my life. I don't want to live my life while taking care of him. I'm going to start a new life with a new partner. Emily, my mother-in-law, chose to leave her husband, who had devoted himself to the family for years, to live with a new partner. Being elderly and having a lot of debt is very concerning. My husband seems to like you, so I've asked you to take care of his debt repayment and him. Emily seems to have no intention of supporting my father-in-law, despite the many challenges he faces. After all these years, she left the house with a carefree look. After Emily left, my father-in-law, staring at the front door, looked deeply saddened. I approached him quietly from behind. "Dad, you've always treated me like your real daughter, and I'm truly grateful for that. I'm committed to helping in any way I can as your daughter. Let's work together." Although I said that, I was feeling anxious and restless inside. Still wanting to support my father-in-law, I spoke to him cheerfully. At that moment, I noticed his shoulders trembling, thinking he started crying. I was surprised, but for some reason, he was chuckling. Finally, the nuisance is gone. I've been waiting for this moment, ha. Confused and not understanding what had just happened, I listened as my father-in-law began to tell his story. "My name is Mia. I am a housewife and I'm turning 42 this year. I live with my husband, Liam, and his parents, so there are 4 of us living together. Originally from Idaho, I moved to California for university. After graduating, I started working for an IT-related company. I deepened my relationship with my boss, who later became my husband. And after we got married, we decided to live in his family home. At first, I felt uncomfortable living with my husband's parents. But growing up in a single-parent household after my parents divorced, I longed for a family. Even though I was told by a doctor that getting pregnant would be difficult for me, I thought it might be more lively and fun to live with my husband's parents rather than just the 2 of us. In fact, my father-in-law, Noah, was the president of the company I joined. Therefore, my husband was the son of the president. But he worked like any other employee. Moreover, the president, Noah, rarely showed up at the office, so I didn't know about this until after we got married. I retired after getting married, but my husband has since been promoted and is now an executive overseeing the operations. He often disagrees with his father's management philosophy and aspires to become the president himself to grow the company. Noah is getting older. There were rumors that he might retire soon, and my husband was waiting for that opportunity. But despite his age, he was surprisingly energetic. He wanted to hand over the presidency to the next generation, and after retirement, he wanted to convert a room in his house into a community space where locals can relax and dine. For some reason, Emily strongly opposed this idea. She is 5 years younger than Noah and is very keen on beauty. She regularly visits nail salons and beauty salons, making her look much younger than her actual age. She seemed inept at household chores like cooking and cleaning, often opting for food delivery or dining out, and relying on professionals for cleaning, doing only the bare minimum herself. Thanks to Noah's success as a businessman and his wealth, Emily was able to live a luxurious life without financial worries. However, Emily seemed unable to tolerate the idea of her husband stepping down from his CEO position, accepting a decrease in income, or letting strangers into their home. Therefore, she strongly opposed his long-held dream of running a community space. Up to now, Noah had never gone against Emily's wishes, always letting her do as she pleased. However, he seemed very keen on realizing this new idea and was persistently trying to persuade her. Although she initially objected, in the end, she respected her husband's decision. He decided to retire from his CEO position due to declining health. However, the plans for renovating the house for a community space were put on hold, and their son Liam was chosen as the next CEO candidate. The initial plan wasn't to suddenly hand over all the CEO responsibilities to him, but to do so gradually. On the other hand, Emily, seemingly upset that her opinion was disregarded, began to treat her husband coldly. At first, when Liam began to take over as CEO, he was in close contact with his father, but as his responsibilities grew, his attitude began to change, and at home, he started to act more aloof, much like his mother. It appeared he was openly expressing his ambitions as the company's CEO. Noah, seeing his hard-working son ignoring the company's policies, making decisions on his own, and being overly strict with his subordinates, expressed his concerns to me. I had separated from my father when I was very young and hardly had any memories of him. Thus, I deeply respected Noah, who was loved by many, kind to others, and strict with himself as if he were my own father. Feeling increasingly isolated at home, Noah began to confide in me more and more. It pained me daily to see someone as admirable and beloved as Noah treated coldly by his wife and son, the two people closest to him in the family. I thought about how to improve the situation, but both Emily and Noah were very stubborn, and there seemed little hope for change. One day, Emily gathered the family and made a proposal. It was to sell the current house and build a new one. There's a historic house for sale nearby. The building is aging, but by utilizing the reusable old materials and preserving the garden, I believe it can be renovated into a very attractive residence. I don't mind creating a community space as long as I have my own room. I wondered why she, who had once been so opposed, would suddenly make such a suggestion. However, Noah seemed delighted, exclaiming, "What a great idea! Building a new house with a community space overlooking the garden from an open deck would be wonderful." Respecting his parents' wishes, Liam expressed his agreement to move to the new house, and preparations for the move began. Emily took charge of all the preparations for the new house, and I wasn't allowed to intervene. Even when I inquired about the progress, I was coldly told, "It's none of your business." It seemed she often talked with Liam, and preparations for the new house were going smoothly. Then, one day, it came to light that Noah had a debt of $5 million, shocking the family. Alongside his role as the company's CEO, he had been investing in various stocks. His investments mainly involved stocks of acquaintances or companies he wanted to support, avoiding high-risk, high-return ventures. So he had never incurred significant losses before. Upon hearing about the debt, the mother-in-law seemed very worried about the house under construction. "I'll handle the debt, so don't worry. I won't cause any trouble for the family." I trusted his words and tried not to feel anxious. On the other hand, Emily seemed concerned about how this might affect her own life and, rather than supporting her husband, began to distance herself even more. One evening, as I was washing dishes in the kitchen, I overheard my husband and Emily discussing our new home. As I listened closely, they were talking about the title of the new home. although Noah was supposed to cover the entire cost of the new home. They appeared to be plotting to secretly register the property in my husband's name without informing the father-in-law Noah. Unable to bear their scheming any longer, I intervened in their conversation. Even though Noah is covering all the costs for the new home, you two are deciding on its title without discussing it with everyone. Since it's a house for all of us, shouldn't we decide together? Noah has declined so much that he's now in $5 million debt. Frankly speaking, as a daughter-in-law, you're not exactly part of the family. All we need from you is to silently take care of the housework. Right now, the only person we can rely on is our son, Liam. I had always sensed that Emily had a cold demeanor and wasn't particularly interested in others. But I was deeply hurt to be explicitly told that I was not part of the family, even though I believed I was. My husband didn't argue with his mother's words. Lately, he has been engrossed in his work, hardly talking to me. The only person I could lean on was Noah. In the past, he tirelessly worked for others in his company. But recently, he's been spending a lot of time sitting listlessly on the couch. I wondered if he was troubled by his massive debt, but it seemed to be more than that. Mia, is dinner ready yet? Dad, what are you talking about? We all just had dinner together. Remember? We had hamburgers and salad. As I replied in confusion, he looked surprised and after a brief pause said, "Right, we already ate," and quietly returned to his room. It was strange seeing someone as astute as him acting this way. Indeed, his behavior had been off lately. I mustered up the courage to ask, "Dad, have you been forgetting things lately? Maybe you should see a doctor." But he brushed it off, saying he was just a bit tired. When I approached Emily about it, she responded indifferently. "Is that so? His sharp mind and wealth are his strengths. But if he's losing his memory, there's nothing we can do." Even discussing it with my husband, he said, "I've also felt something was off lately. I need to take over his duties and get him to retire fully." He seemed solely concerned about work. I felt incredibly lonely, realizing that no one in the family was genuinely concerned about the main provider's well-being. Since I couldn't rely on my mother-in-law or husband, I decided that it was up to me to support him. I tried numerous times to persuade him to see a doctor, but he persistently refused. His symptoms worsened day by day, and I grew more anxious. I researched dementia and tried everything I could, but he continued to resist going to the hospital. Mia desperately tried to persuade, but her mother-in-law watched with a cold gaze. "It seems like nothing will work. You should immediately transfer the company rights and shares to Liam." Emily, who had always relied on her husband's financial support, had shown indifference before, but she never verbally abused anyone or interfered with their work. However, recently, since her husband began showing symptoms of dementia, she began to verbally abuse him directly. The family ties had grown cold, and the situation was dire. However, a new home was being built, and once they moved in, it might lift her spirits. Moreover, the dream of running a community space might stimulate her husband and potentially alleviate his dementia symptoms. I, eagerly anticipating the move to the new home, had dreamt of this day. And finally, the day arrived. On the moving day, while the movers handled the large furniture, they had to carry in the rest of the items themselves. Emily gave specific instructions on organizing the items and their placement in the rooms. For some reason, my and Noah's belongings were left to be moved out last. so they followed her instructions. After moving out the belongings of Emily and her husband, I returned to the old house to call out to Noah. As I did so, the front door suddenly opened and Emily entered. "Good work. You and Noah will move into this apartment," she said, handing over a note with the address of a nearby apartment. "Excuse me? What do you mean?" "In the new house, it'll be me, Liam, and Mr. Smith. You'll live in this apartment with my husband." "Who is this Mr. Smith? Why has this happened?" Overwhelmed by the unbelievable events, I was at a loss for words. Having a husband with dementia restricts my life. I can't live my life while taking care of him. I'm starting a new life with my new partner. Emily, the mother-in-law, had chosen to abandon her husband, who had devoted himself to the family, and start a new life with her lover. It was unbelievable that she intended to live with her lover and son, casting out her husband and daughter-in-law, considering he's elderly and has a considerable debt. It's quite a worrying situation. But since my husband seems fond of you, I've asked you to take care of his debt and him. Emily had placed all the burdens on me. Showing no intention of supporting her husband despite all his struggles, Emily left the house seemingly in high spirits. After she left, Noah stood staring at the door, looking deeply saddened. I approached him from behind and spoke softly. "Dad, you've always treated me like your real daughter, and I'm genuinely grateful for that. I'm prepared to cooperate in any way I can as your daughter. Let's work together." Even though I said that, I was filled with anxiety and impatience inside. Still, with a genuine desire to support Noah, I spoke to him cheerfully. At that moment, I noticed Noah's shoulders trembling. Thinking he had started crying, I looked at him in surprise, only to find him chuckling. Finally, the nuisance is gone. I've been waiting for this moment for so long. LOL. As I was bewildered and unaware of what was going on, Noah began to speak. Actually, I knew about my wife's affair. When she mentioned wanting to build a new house, I saw it as an opportunity and devised this plan. I pretended to have dementia and invested $5 million to make her distance herself from me. I believed she would keep taking my money and freedom indefinitely if I didn't do something. I hoped she would propose a divorce. But I never imagined she would kick me out and suggest I live in a rundown apartment. It turns out Noah was feigning dementia. I seem to have been deceived by his act. The realization brought mixed feelings of relief and shock. I genuinely regret deceiving Mia. Rest assured about a $5 million investment. It's bound to be profitable, even if things don't go as planned. The losses won't be significant. The real phase of the plan is just beginning. Look forward to it. Noah smiled mischievously. Together, we headed towards the new house in a car. Watching us, Emily spoke with a resentful look on her face. "What's going on with you two? Mia, please make sure to convince my husband. You both told me to live in an apartment, didn't you? My new partner will be moving into this house tomorrow. Also, all the company assets will be transferred to Liam. So could you hand over my husband's bank book, seal, and other vital documents to me?" She truly believes in Noah's dementia, thinking he has lost all understanding. She doesn't intend to divorce, but she plans to live separately, depending on his income while living freely with her new partner. While her actions are hard to comprehend, it's even more perplexing that my husband accepts it. I never planned to make Liam the successor of the company, and I own this house. You'll no longer be my spouse, Emily. You're the one who has to leave this place." Surprised and shocked, Emily couldn't believe this sudden change in Noah's tone. "I'll pay your apartment rent. Start a new life there with your new partner. Now quickly pack your things and leave this place." Despite always accommodating Emily's whims, Noah seemed to have recognized the complete absence of love she held for him, which made him furious. Her surprise and confusion were evident. "I'm sorry, my dear. I was scared because I believed you had dementia. I doubted my ability to care for you, and the $5 million debt made me even more anxious. Please believe me when I say I truly love you. Please don't tell me to leave." After hearing her superficial excuses, especially when she had previously made such derogatory remarks about him, I couldn't help but be amazed at her audacity. Continuing with a stunned expression, Noah spoke. "The $5 million debt isn't much of an issue for me. I used to find your innocence and hard work endearing. But realizing you'd abandon everything without money made me see you don't know how to truly love someone. I wish to spend my remaining days peacefully in this house. I no longer want to see your face. Could you please leave?" My husband, who had been listening to their conversation, quickly packed his mother's belongings and threw them out of the house. Not wanting to be associated with her side, I was stunned by his swift change of attitude. "I'm sorry, I can't manage on my own. Liam, please don't abandon me. Please forgive me." Ignoring her desperate pleas, Noah and Liam entered the new house. While I felt pity for Emily's situation, she had chosen this path, and there was nothing to be done. I followed the two of them into the new home. After a lot of effort, Liam tried to persuade Noah. However, it was clear that he was self-centered, focused only on profit, and lacked consideration for his subordinates and long-standing business partners. As a result, he was deemed unsuitable to be his successor. Actually, Noah had already passed on his duties to someone from another department, who had a long-standing track record. He transferred his company shares to that person and stepped down as president. When Liam found out that the person he had always viewed as his rival since joining the company became the next president, he was devastated and seemed to lose heart. After parting ways with Noah, Emily lived in an old apartment with her lover. However, their standard of living had decreased compared to before, and they seemed to argue more. Eventually, she was left by her lover. Now it seems hard for her to support herself, and she manages to get by with a little assistance from her ex-husband. When I went to see how Emily was doing, she seemed downcast. Her hair was messy, her makeup was faint, and she looked considerably worn out compared to before. I started operating a community space with Noah. Financially, he supports, and I'm in charge of on-site operations. As the community space became widely known in the area and was even featured in magazines, the number of users increased, so I incorporated it as an NPO. As a result, our range of activities has expanded even more. My husband, Liam, lost his place in the company and eventually resigned. After resigning, he has been working on community activities as one of my subordinates. I hope that by meeting various people, Liam's perspective will broaden and his arrogant and profit-oriented mindset will change. Even if just a little, I wish to get along well with Noah, who has devoted himself to others to realize his lifelong dream, and hope that our fulfilling days continue forever.